My name's Peter Baird. I do some farm consulting and farming on the side. Just here with Ben Pollard at Warrananga Station, just sort of about 50 k's west of Wentworth. Just talking about ground cover issues associated to the last 4 to 5 years where there's been some poor years in a cropping and a grazing context and pastoral station country. So.
We've got 80,000 acres, this is about 32,000 hectares. We've got around 4,500 acres of arable dirt, 1,900 acres here at the house block, and there's another 3,500 acres at Quamby. Our main focus is merino sheep growing. We just grow a dual purpose animal. And then we do a little bit of farming on the side, and we've got an irrigation as well, so to sort of tick the box with trying to keep our droughts at bay, so we can grow our own hay and a little bit of fodder, as well as be able to do a couple of cash crops and stuff like that as well in the years when we can. Yeah, so in 2017 we sowed 1,100 acres of peas on this block itself, so which was over half the program, and they were a fairly handy crop. And then we got frosted. They were growing really well, good ground cover, done all our grass sprays and got everything up to scratch. And then 18 we got the crop germinated beautifully. It was up and going, looked great, and then it got really dry up north, and then the vermin come in, and because we've got the river on one boundary and there wasn't too much cropping and stuff in the north of us, the roos and vermin come in and more or less wiped us out before the drought actually had completely hit. I think if we were able to stop the vermin, we may not have harvested, but we would have had ground cover. And then the 19, we couldn't even grow the crop. It was just the drift was phenomenal. Really was a bit heartbreaking after you've been no-till since 2004, I think we started. 2004, I think, was the first year of no-till here.
One thing Ben and other local people saying, probably in 18 particularly, or even start of 19, was where there was some weed growth, they thought people were leaving anything that was there to try and have some ground cover, but because of the way it continued on, they'd end up actually working against people.
We left some turnip up on some of the areas, and we thought, just something to hold the ground, but it actually cut it worse because it furrowed around it, and it made a mess. And then the turnip, once it got to a stage, it blew onto the fence, and then the fence filled up, and then the mallee trees filled up, and it got pretty bad for a little bit. And then 19, we didn't have a harvest at all. In 2020, we had to do some sort of a levelling program. We had to work the country again with a chisel plough, and then I actually made a level board only about 7 metres wide and had back wheels on it, and we just dragged that around a couple of times in spots, 3 times in spots, and got the country to a reasonable level. But there's still areas now that I really have to go back and go again, because you'd never be able to do peas at this stage, or lentils or anything like that. You'd never be able to get them off the ground. You'd probably try and keep your cereals going as much as you could, because the legumes, even though peas don't seem to use as much moisture, but just if you knew that you were going to have a drier period throughout that year in the summer, you really would have to try and look at your cereals as much as you can. Whether with the lifters on with the peas, you're sort of disturbing the ground a little bit. So that's all like if it was Maybe chickpeas, you mightn't be actually touching the ground, which is not loosening the ground.
Yeah.
So whether you go, I would like to try some chickpeas. I've even been saying the last couple of weeks, try some beans. I know it hasn't probably never been done up here, but try some. My brother grows beans down at Keith, and they're sort of 5-6 foot high. If we could grow them a foot, just to get the header fronts off the ground. And then if you could get them off the ground and not even touch the last year's stubble, it seems like we're dragging a lot of the last year's stubble out of the ground as well, which if we could leave that there as well to protect the ground, especially with the legume in it, I think would be a lot better, like for your summer, for your erosion for over this next summer.
It's one comment that a lot of people make, that any of their crops on the back of a legume, which is why people are growing them, are very sturdy and robust. They seem to tolerate even stress conditions, moisture stress better, even though they seem like a bulkier crop. But that is the challenge in what legume crops we can grow to support the cereal grain crops in this environment that don't add the risk of particularly erosion. So it is a bit of a tricky one that people are still trying to work out the best balance for their farms, that's for sure.